Now, in the program, you might also see the next story is Tobacco-verse folklore. That's because Stephanie Tobacco has created her own universe of characters and stories in her mind. We're having that looked into. And this story is a sequel to the very first story that she did in Tellers long, long ago. This is Stephanie Tobacco.
Siblings can be a curse. But in a long-lost kingdom, in a long-lost world that, well, by the constellations has been long-lost forgotten, there lived a prince named Wilhelm, and he was born with both a curse and a blessing. He was born with 364 brothers and sisters. Now, he was only the 32nd born, but his brothers and sisters were happy to have him as their leader, for he was very responsible. He taught Alita to not run with sharp objects. He taught Zara to not take home every single wild animal she found. He taught Wiesel to not eat a spoonful of cinnamon for everyone's entertainment. But by the time they were all 8 years old, Wilhelm had become what all siblings become when given too much power and responsibility: bossy. He always told them what to do and how to do it. He started controlling every single aspect of their lives, controlling what they eat, what they wear, and what they believe. And he made the biggest rule of them all, that they could never, ever, 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 ever leave the castle. Ever. And although his brothers and sisters loved him very, very much, they grew tired of always being ignored, not feeling like their choices were their own, like they weren't their own people. One evening, as dinner was being served in the grand dining hall, siblings 293 through 297 had not shown up yet. And Wilhelm refused to let any of his brothers and sisters eat until they had arrived, and only after they had said grace. Oh, but you could hear the stomachs growling, echoing in the dining hall, their mouths watering to all the fresh fruit and meat. Number 19, Wiesel, he had had enough. He stomped his fist on the table and said, "Now! We're not gonna wait any longer. We're not gonna say grace, and you can't make us." He then sat in his chair and began scarfing down his meal. All the brothers and sisters crowed in agreement with Wiesel, and they too began to eat. Wilhelm demanded for them to stop, but none of them were listening. They all just kept eating. Wilhelm didn't like this feeling of being ignored, this feeling of being small, so he stood up on the table and said, "Oh, you'd all be so useless without me, pecking at your bowls like a flock of birds. Yeah, you might as well just be a bunch of ravens." The room had gone dark. Wilhelm's eyes adjusted and he saw he was surrounded by a swirling vortex, a mob of ravens. His lungs let out a shriek of terror. And all the ravens stopped in flight, perching themselves on different levels of the dining hall. The ruffling of their feathers echoed between his heavy breaths. Their beady eyes and sharp beaks all pointed to him. And Wilhelm knew that he had turned all 359 of his brothers and sisters into ravens. We still don't know what happened with siblings 293 through 297 because they never showed up. Guilt pinched Wilhelm's heart, but he soon brushed that away because he didn't believe this was his fault. How was he supposed to know that was going to happen? He's wished many things upon his annoying brothers and sisters, and none of them have come true. Be that as it may, Wilhelm had forgotten that he lived in a time and a place where words have power. Still believing this was not his fault, and hoping the problem would solve itself, he continued to boss around his brothers and sisters. Oh, but day in and day out of all the pooping, the fighting, the feathers, and the squawking, and eating every single dead animal they found, Wilhelm saw nothing was going to change unless he did something about this. He knew he would need to travel a long distance in order to find someone of magic and power to change them. So he packed a loaf of bread, a jug of water, and a tiny chair in case he got tired. And when he got to the castle gates, he realized that he had never left home before. He took in a big breath, looked to the cloud of ravens that seemed to be following him, and they made their way into this dark, mysterious world. And he walked, and he walked, and they flew, and they flew. They went from glacier to river, mountain to garden. They met witch and wizard alike, but none of them had the power to change them. Oh, sorry, I don't have the power to do that. Oh my boy, I don't have such power. Oh, yes, I have the power. Actually, sorry, no, I don't have the power. He walked, and he walked. The sky spiraled above their head day into night, until eventually they reached the edge of the earth. And as they stood at world's end, Wilhelm feared of falling into infinity. He looked up at the sky. It was a melted mixture of black and blue, yellow and purple. The stars looked like small children waving to him. The planets of his universe strolled by, making new days and new nights. The sky was just so big that it broke his soul. He felt so small, so insignificant, so alone. It was then he saw the sun, and he wondered if she had the power to change them. He called out to her, but the roar of her flames and the heat from her fire were too much for him to bear. He saw that she was coming closer, though. Intimidated by her nature and not feeling worthy to meet such a beauty, he jumped to the moon, hiding within her shadow. Realizing that 359 ravens above his head was not discreet, he heard a voice. My good boy, I know where you're hiding. The moon and I have no secrets. Wilhelm felt the moon beneath him turn and his brothers and sisters scatter, exposing him to the sun. And all his fear melted away. She looked at him in the way a mother would. He unlatched the chair from his back and sat, waiting for the sun to speak. And when she did, every word was stardust and her breath was sweet. My good boy, the stars have told me why you are here. I do not have the power to change your brothers and sisters back to who they are, but I will show you the one who does. She concentrated all of her light, striking a beam of gold and yellow in front of him. And what was once not seen, but was now a mountain made of glass. Her light refracted and bent into millions of different colors and shapes. Wilhelm approached the base of this glass mountain, but all he saw, reflected 1,000 times within, was himself. What he saw was that nothing was going to change unless he did. He turned around to his brothers and sisters, but they were just an unkindness of ravens at his feet. Overwhelmed by the grief that he would never see his brothers and sisters again, he began to cry. And to them, he begged, I am so sorry. This is all my fault. There are just so many of us, and we're all alone. I'm just trying to do my best. I am so sorry that I changed you. Please, please forgive me. He he wiped the tears from his eyes. And as forgiveness came to each and every one of the ravens, one by one, his brothers and sisters returned to him. Alita, Zara, Wiesel, Rachel, Monica, Joey, Chandler, Ross, Phoebe. Belhema. They ran out of names. Belhema. Sarah, Jessica, Parker. His brothers and sisters ran to him with nothing but a warm smile and an embrace. From that day on, the sun and the moon became their guardians, letting Wilhelm be a kid again. They each were their own person with their own choices. For change is not something you can ask from others, but rather it is something you give yourself.